welcome to Jacob's Quest, and tonight I just got finished watching the first two episodes of the new Star Wars show Skeleton Crew, and I gotta say, just up front, it is wonderful so far. Like, it has obviously been reaching for the Spielbergian, Goonies, E.T. vibe, a lot of Stranger Things comparisons, and it's definitely matched that. It's definitely like got the, what was it, Amblin Entertainment, the old school, like, it's hitting that vibe really accurately, and it still feels like Star Wars to me. And I know that looking at the trailers, there was some concern that, like, okay, a lot of it looks very much like Earth, a lot of very Earth looking settings here at this initial planet that they were at, this home planet of At-Aten, which, by the way, we'll get into that, but it doesn't bother me that much. I think it also kind of gives that planet its own specific sort of vibe, and so far the show has managed to introduce several different lines of mystery and theorizing and stuff, and I think that was one thing that I was kind of concerned about going into the show, was that I did not want this one to be as heavily theorized on as some other Star Wars projects have been in the past, because from my experience, whenever we start theorizing about what's happening in Ahsoka or Acolyte or Mandalorian or whatever, the things people come up with almost never match up with what ends up happening in the show, and that sense of disappointment sets in, and it just keeps happening, and no one ever seems to learn their lesson to just let the show play out. They always go crazy with their theories, and so I was like, man, I hope this show is really standalone. I hope it's just its own adventure. I hope there's not too much craziness and theorizing and all these what if this character shows up and what if this character shows up. And so I think the show so far, again, it's only 2 episodes, has done a pretty good job of being really self-contained, but also still having a lot of intrigue, and overall it's just got good vibes. All the kids are all doing a great job. They're all likable. None of them are annoying. I think that's another thing I think some of us might have been worried about, is that you have kid characters in Star Wars, it might be easy for them to come off as really annoying and kind of irritating, and you're like, oh man, I'm stuck with these kids the whole time. That was obviously a thing in the prequels. We're not going to go into it, but that was the thing a lot of people criticized Phantom Menace for. So it's kind of a risk that you run in this franchise with having small children being the stars of the show. But yeah, overall, everyone's doing really great. They're all likable. They all got their own senses of humor, their own personalities, and just the Stranger Things comparisons, they did a great job there. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the actual plot. I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but the basics of, okay, they're at this planet, and as the audience, we're kind of just introduced to the system of how this planet works, right? Okay, all these kids go to a school, they take a test, and they're basically assigned a job that this is what you'll be doing for the rest of your life, and it kind of feels like almost one of those YA books that have that kind of setup. But of course, the kids want to, some of them want to dream bigger and have more ambition and go out and into the galaxy and help people and do great things that they hear about in all their stories. And I think that's something that's definitely helping the magic here, is that the kid is having the same sorts of pretending to lightsaber fight with their friends, and they have the little Jedi and Sith action figures, and I'm like, okay, so it's us, it's what we did when we were kids. It's that's our stuff. That's pretty cool. They were able to really put that on screen. Oddly enough, it kind of reminds me of The Last Jedi at the very end, when those kids were playing with the Luke Skywalker toys that they had, and I feel like this is a more almost literal translation of that same idea. So it's pretty cool seeing that. So anyways, yeah, basically these kids, they find what they thought was a Jedi temple, because this kid wants to be a Jedi. It's the story he's heard growing up, and it turns out to be a ship. They get blasted off into the planet, and now they're lost. That's the premise that they show you in the trailer, and that's basically what happens. Sprinkled on top of that, we already are given some more context and some more interesting things. I think I'm just gonna say this up front. It's, you can consider it a spoiler if you want, because the show is definitely treating this like it's supposed to be a big surprise. Or maybe it's a red herring, and the show is smarter than, than I'm giving it credit for. So, in the first episode, at the very beginning, it opens with this pirate crew doing this job. They break into this ship, they go into the vault, it's empty, and they all mutiny against their captain, who is this mysterious helmeted figure, right? But right as he's talking, I'm like, okay, so that's Jude Law then. That's, I'm like, they put the helmet on him, so you're not supposed to know who he is. But he gets mutinied against, and then they cut to later, and, all the way to where the kids meet Jude Law in the jail cell that the pirates threw them in. And, he says, oh, I'm a Jedi, and he uses the Force to grab the keys, like that moment we saw in the trailers, which, of course, that's a mystery on its own. But I think that initial thing is like, okay, so he was definitely the captain of this pirate crew. Like, I know the show's kind of... I'm hoping they don't, like, leave that till, like, the end of the season, acting like that's some kind of big shock, because it seems really obvious. I don't know if it's supposed to be this long-running surprise, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see if they drag that out or not. If it does not turn out to be him, I would be very surprised. I'm like, okay, they tricked me. It sounded like Jude Law when he talked, so I'm assuming that that's who that was. But anyways, the other thing here about, him being a Jedi, right? Like, that's another, like, gonna be an ongoing mystery throughout this. I think what seems probably what's going to end up happening is that this is a Kanan situation. He was probably a Padawan or even a youngling when Order 66 happened. He ran away, and in order to survive, he ended up becoming a pirate. And because he has the Force, he's a pretty good pirate. He ends up being the captain of this crew until they mutiny against him, and here we are. That seems like the most basic way that this is going to go, because the kid's like, oh, you're a Jedi, and he's like, yeah, shh, be quiet, it's a secret, So I'm sure him being able to use the Force is a secret. Like, he, the pirates threw him in this jail cell, and they left the keys hanging on the wall. So they must not know that he can use the Force to just grab them at any time he wanted to, because, he was just sitting there. He could have escaped at any moment, and he decided until now, probably because these kids have a ship, to finally, all right, let's get out of here now. So that's like my theory so far, is that like he was probably just some youngling that had to survive out there while the Empire ran the show, and so he was in hiding as a pirate. And again, the show might be smarter than me, maybe that's not the case at all, but it feels like that's the pretty clear-cut answer as to what's going to end up happening. And I think this is gonna be like my final theory here, or at least one of them so far. Okay, so their home of At-Aten, and this is another pretty interesting thing. So I have not researched this at all. Apparently in the Legends canon, this planet is a pretty significant area for the Old Republic games and novels and such. And in here, when they leave the ship, they keep talking about a barrier that they're leaving. Like, oh, we're getting through the barrier, oh no. Like they're leaving their planet's atmosphere. And they see stars for the first time, and they're not even able to identify those. So like these kids, and I guess maybe even the entire population of the planet, like they're not supposed to leave this place. Like they don't know what's really going on the outside world, or the outside universe. Which kind of like, I don't know how sinister that's gonna get, because I think they kept talking about some administrator who's like in charge of the planet or in charge of their government or something. So as far as like, why are they stuck here? Like they know about the New Republic, but they seem to, for some reason, still be kept really secret. So specifically as to what's going on there, I don't know. Is it going to turn out that, maybe his dad is working for the real bad guys of the show, and it's going to turn out that like, oh, you guys have all been kept secret hostage on this planet, and you didn't even realize it because you were told some story about a barrier and how dangerous the galaxy was or something. I don't know exactly how far that's going to go. That's pretty interesting on its own. But also, when they go and talk to the pirates, the pirates are like, oh, there's a treasure. It's a mythological planet. At-Aten doesn't actually exist. That's just a myth, you know? And so this is the first they're hearing of that. Like, oh, wait, our planet is a myth to you guys? You don't think it even exists? And also there's supposed to be a treasure on this planet. So, yeah, something happened at some point. Somebody decided to, like, close off this planet to the galaxy and make it so that no one ever leaves and no one ever comes to this planet. So I don't know how sinister and how evil this is actually going to get, because it kind of feels like, you know, they're going to uncover some kind of plot of like, oh, you know, maybe that lady's actually a bad guy somehow. You're like, I don't know. They introduced this lady early on in the show. So maybe she's actually going to end up being the secret villain. It's possible. I don't know. That could kind of go either way, you know? I think the other thing, and this is, again, I guess another theory that I got so far. So all the pirates think that a treasure is on this planet At-Aten, their mythological home that they just came from. And they don't know anything about a treasure. They're like, what are you talking about? So my theory right now is that the ship that they just found underground and it launched them into space, that ship actually contains the treasure that was on their planet, and that's why the pirates think that there's a treasure there. It's because a long time ago, like long time ago, one of their pirate ships crashed on the planet with all their treasure on it, and so it's like a story that they passed on, but no one's ever been able to find it, and no one on At-Aten knew about it because it was buried underneath the ground. So I think that's what's going to end up happening. I think they're going to get back to their ship and they're going to discover, like, oh wait, there's a bunch of treasure on the ship. This is the treasure that they thought was on At-Aten. It's with us here now. So that's my other kind of like idea. I think it's gonna end up happening. And again, maybe that won't be revealed until near the end of the season. They go to some locked section of the ship they haven't been able to open. They open it up and like, oh, here's all the treasure. Anyways, lots of intrigue, lots of cool stuff possibly happening. And I also feel like they don't need to have some kind of cameo or have some kind of appearance by, you know, like Luke Skywalker does not need to show up in this show. He doesn't have any reason to. It's so self-contained, so standalone. Like, you know, its mysteries are, you know, even by the fact that it's so self-contained, the planet itself, At-Aten, was self-contained, you know, like that alone is a mystery. So like, wait, what's going on here actually? You know, like, why does no one on the planet seems to know that they are a secret? So that's interesting. But yeah, pretty cool. I'm really digging the show so far. It's got a really cool vibe to it. Obviously, you know, it's reaching for the Amblin Entertainment and it is succeeding. Like I'm totally invested in everything going on here. Yeah, I'm really happy with the way this turned out. And I'm gonna say this now, and I don't know. I'm probably gonna end up being wrong, but I cannot imagine that anyone's gonna walk away from this with any kind of huge controversial complaint. You know, anything that's gonna end up being trending on social media, being like, hashtag not my Star Wars, hashtag something, you know, like none of that. I can't imagine that you're a Star Wars fan and you watch this and you have something to get really angry about. Like, this is, you know what I mean? This is pretty lighthearted. It's adventure. It's got danger to it. It's Amblin Entertainment, Goonies style stuff. I don't see anything to complain about, is what I'm saying. So, you know, and I say that now knowing that tomorrow I'm going to log on to whatever social media and be like, well, damn, of course, they found something to complain about. So, anyways, right now, I'm really happy. I'm really, really happy with the show. Yeah, I dig it. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about Skeleton Crew, episodes 1 and 2. Let me know your little theories and what you think is going on. Why is At-Aten such a hidden thing? I'm going to go read up on At-Aten in Legends continuity. And again, that's Legends continuity, so that doesn't mean necessarily any of it's going to pertain to what's happening in this show. But it could, obviously, right? Like, it's possible. So I'm going to go look that up. And yeah, maybe next week I'll have even more ideas. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.